Hello, and welcome back to Health and Wealth. I'm Ana Ramos, and in today's conversation is about something subtle and yet powerful. What happens when your career lives in one world and your spirit lives in another? Greta Gutierrez is an architect. She designs structures. She works in a profession traditionally shaped by masculine energy, full of logic, hierarchy, authority, and yet her internal compass has always been deeply spiritual. Greta grew up in an environment where a woman's worth was defined relationally, by family, by marriage, by service, not by self-authorship. So the question becomes, what does it mean to build a career in a men's world while reclaiming a spirit identity that tells you you're your own individual? This season of Health and Wealth is about foundations, and one of the most important foundations is this: alignment. When your external work reflects your internal truth, when your career does not silence your spirit, when your economic agency honors your inner authority. Today, we explore that intersection. Not career versus spirituality, not power versus devotion, but integration. So, let's take a breath and let us begin. Greta, thank you so much for coming. It's so beautiful to reconnect with you. So welcome and being live. I love that.
Thank you so much, Anna, for inviting me. I was super excited to receive the invitation and just be here with you. Since I first met you, I feel the connection, the conversation, everything, and I'm just happy to be here with you.
Oh, so amazing. I think we met at a jewelry show, right?
Yes.
And it was in this beautiful house in Roma Norte. And I was like, wow, this is so beautiful. I wish I could do the podcast here because it was just so inspirational.
Yes, it was a beautiful place. I loved it.
And I think that that's how you began to tell me. You're like, well, this is like, you started giving me history. And I'm like, how do you know this? And you're like, I'm an architect.
Yes, actually, because it had a lot of yes, it was a beautiful place, and I remember that. And then we started talking about spirituality and all that, and that's,
Yes.
I think, where we got the connection.
Yeah, and I think we connected. I think we connected on that level, but I think we also connected because we're both women who work in a traditionally male-dominated, environment, right? And
Yes, definitely.
and not only do you work in a male-dominated environment as an architect, but you also come from a very traditional Latin family environment. And, we were kind of comparing a little bit about that, right? Because here you have mom and dad with one certain tradition. They're both Latin. I come from a dad who's Latin, a mom who's American, and how that changes. So we can get things started. Talk to us a little bit about your upbringing and, and how you stepped into architecture and how did you redefine that as well?
Okay, so as you said it, I was born and raised in a very traditional Mexican family, and that means that at the end, I needed, like, the goal was for me to get married and build that traditional family, right? Even though it was supposed, like, for me to go to a university and study, like I wasn't supposed to really be not to become an architect, like yes, a study, but it was more like my dad and my mom pursued me, like you need to get married and that's it. Like that was the next step I needed to do.
So you originally, sorry to cut you, but you originally went in to study architecture, or you originally went in to study something different?
No, I originally went to study architecture.
Okay.
But as I grew up, like it was supposed for me to study, but the goal, like as I told you, is to get married and have kids.
Right.
So that was a little bit uncomfortable for me because it didn't felt like it was something aligned with me. Because when I decided to be an architect, like I wouldn't have studied to be an architect if I didn't want to be an architect. It's a pretty, it's not that easy.
It's an intense field. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work that I get done. So it didn't feel that it was aligned what I wanted versus what my parents wanted for me. So it was kind of hard to really
it was hard to pursue it.
Uh-huh,
It was
exactly. To
basically hard to
pursue
pursue
because
it.
my soul wanted more. Like
Right.
I wanted to be an independent woman, but the only way I could be independent or move out of my parents was only by marrying someone.
Right. And here you're challenging the norm. You're challenging tradition. And so how did you feel when you wanted to honor yourself, right? What your soul wanted, what your spirit wanted. How did you feel when you're like, I want to honor this, but I also want to honor my Latin roots, my family, like what they have, what they see as success, right?
Okay. So at first it was harsh, like to realize that what I really wanted, that it at the end is to become an independent woman, that I am, right? But it's not like my parents didn't want me to work, but as I told you, they just, that was the goal, that was the next step. So as I grew up, I did have a lot of boyfriends. And at the end, it didn't work out because that was not my desire. I did move in with one boyfriend. I did not get married, obviously. Well, not obviously, but I did not get married. But after that breakup, I understood that my roots or what I was inherited or what I needed to do wasn't really my desire. That's when I started exploring my spirituality. Like, what do I want?
Yes.
Because I really felt really lost. And in that moment in my life, a lot of things happened. Like, I ended a relationship, so I needed to move back with my parents because there was no other way I could do it. I lost my dog because he took my dog, and I also lost my job. This all happened in 1 month. So I was completely lost myself. And I remember I was taking a shower and I started talking to God. I asked for forgiveness and I asked for guidance. And that's the day that my spirituality was like born. And that's the day I started, like, I call it a deconstruction. I deconstructed myself to reconstruct me again. And in all that process, like me experiencing the spirituality, asking myself what I really wanted, also took me to make my own firm because I just lost my job. And the answer was clearly like the next step
Yeah.
is to do my own firm, not to get married. So that's where it all started, or this.
It's interesting that you found that as you were taking a shower. It's something no, but it's something interesting because my mom used to always make fun because I was very young and I would be in the shower for hours,
Okay.
right? And my mom would ask me, "Are you done yet?" And I would be like, "No, mom, I still have to wash my hair." And she'll be like, "You washed your hair 5 times already." And I was like, "I have to wash my hair." And later on, like I'm gonna say maybe 10 years ago, I had a mentor. It was a stress management mentor. And we started talking about that. And I explained, that story came about. And he just like, he stood on his chair and he was like, wow. And I'm like, what are you wowing to? And he goes, it is amazing the clarity you had so young. And he began to explain how our nervous system reacts when we have water that's hitting our frontal lobe, right? How it relaxes our system. And so apparently, because of my parents' jobs and works that they did, it was a stressful environment. And I found peace in that moment of shower. So it's interesting that you found that connection to yourself. You found that peace, and you're like, okay, I need to redo my job. I need to redo my life, right? That has to be connected to me.
Yes.
So now you pursue architecture. Well, first, how did you break the news to your parents? Or you waited?
I break the news when the first project came because, like I told you, I asked God for guidance. I call it God, like the universe, this universal force that exists that we can understand or don't understand. And I had an Instagram, like I started an Instagram for like this film, but it wasn't really something concrete done. And no joke, that week someone contacted us because my firm is not only mine. I have a business partner, and it's important to mention her because she's a really, like, I wouldn't be living this dream if it wouldn't be with her. Like, I love her. She is my best friend, my business partner, and she's an important part of all this. But at the end, someone asked us, like, do you only sell wallpapers or you can do an interior design project? And that's when I started seeing how the universe responds when you're aligned with what you are need to do or the next step that was really aligned with me. So I remember we were in a Starbucks. We met the client. He gave us like the money. Okay, how much do you need to start? And I couldn't believe it, but I felt all this inside of me that it was the right choice to make.
Yeah, it was nerve-wracking.
Yes.
It was nervous, but you're like, this feels right. Deep down inside, this feels right.
And this was in 2022. We are already in 2026. This was in Monterrey. I now live in Mexico City and I have my projects in Mexico City because I visualized it and I was like, I want to grow up as a person and I want to grow up my firm. I want to move to Mexico City. So at the end, everything just started aligning to me. And when I told my parents, they were like, okay, if that's what you want to do, go. And it's not that like they didn't believe in me, but actually my mom this week, I talked to her and she told me my dad died recently, not that long ago. It's okay. I understand how life goes, that it's okay. Like I know he's still here with me. And since he died, a lot of more beautiful things had happened to me. And it's like, it's the way I'm deciding to see things.
You're aligned with his soul, because I just recently went through something similar, Greta. It's like, my father has not passed away, but he's deteriorating. And, my mom said, the doctor said that in 6 months, we got to talk about end of life decision. And I felt how hard it was for her. And I did a checkpoint with myself. And I said, how do you feel, Anna? And I was like, I'm okay. I'm okay with it. Because I know that he lived his purpose. I know that I've learned so much from him, and he's always going to be present with me. And look at that, you're making me cry. But it's when you align yourself with things, whether it's your career, your health, your relationships, your parents, the whys. It's amazing how we feel things deeply, but at the same time, we let them go with love and with permission.
That's what I was on to tell. When I learned to let love with love, and it has changed my life completely.
Yes.
But as I was telling you, I talked to my mom, and she really it's the first time she told me like, I'm really proud of what you're doing. Like this independent, you have your own firm, you are in Mexico City, like wow.
Yeah.
But for her, it didn't make sense, like the decisions. Like, why are you moving to Mexico City? Why do you go there? You have nobody there. What are you gonna do? How are you gonna get the projects? But everything is happening at the end. So it's just I feel because I'm aligned with my purpose, what I do. Like I'm really passionate about being an architect. I think it's really important to be passionate of what you do. And that's how you continue being aligned with yourself. And that's how the projects come, the people you get to know take you to these places, to these new opportunities.
And I love that. And I think almost, and I'm gonna cross over a little bit here. I think you almost gave, by you aligning yourself, you gave permission to your mom to also step into alignment with herself, because she comes from that past, right? And from that being raised in a Latin world, and this is what you're supposed to do. So kudos to you, kudos to your partner for starting this firm. I personally know how difficult it is, and I guarantee you it's still going to continue to be difficult. But when you align yourself, it's an energy that I can't explain, and you probably know it. It's this energy that you work through it and you work hard at it, but you keep going because there's an inner alignment, right? That speaks to your soul.
Exactly.
And I get it. And let's talk a little bit. I'm gonna kind of switch a little bit, because we in the past we talked a little bit about not so much male and female energy, but the doing and the being energy.
Okay. Yes.
And you are in architecture. It is male, quote unquote, energy driven. It's a lot of, I'm just gonna say it, right? It's ego, right? And the ego it's also tradition, right?
Exactly.
It's the fact that the industry is male dominated. I'm in the finance, you're in the architect world. It is male dominated. How do you as a woman, and you're not just a woman, because sometimes you meet women and they are in male energy all day long because they have to survive in that world. But I like to call it, how do you thrive? Not survive, because survive to me, it takes away, right? When you're in survival mode, it takes away. How do you thrive in that world, in that male energy, that doing energy, when your soul calls for soft, like more softness? How do you manage that?
Well, at first it was difficult. Like the first time I needed to go to a field, it was as a student, and when I realized like the construction workers didn't took me seriously just because I was a woman, it was harsh. But as I continue growing and realizing I really wanted to be an architect and build this for me and build things, I like building things. Um, and when all this spirituality came to me, all this realization, I understood that as within, without. So my inner world is a reflection of my outer world. And at the end, if a man doesn't want to work for me, then don't work for me. Like I level up the energy, as you say, doing things. Like I need to do things. But it's finding the balance. Like, okay, from 9 to 6, I can be this energy of doing because that's how I get things done. But after 6 or before that, I find the balance in my relationships as a daughter, as a friend, or even as a partner. It's
Mm-hmm.
finding that balance, but understanding that at the end, I think it's like the balance, like my inner world is a reflection of my outer world.
Okay.
And even though, yes, it can be this male energy, I work with men, obviously, but they respect me as I respect them. So I have found this beautiful team in Monterrey and in Mexico City. I think at the end, as you are, you vibrate, and that's what how you attract the people you work with. And
Mm-hmm.
I have always have this thought that we can all help each other.
Yes.
So I think that's the balance of like doing and being true to myself and what I have within, express what that without, and it have always come with beautiful people that I work, and
Mm-hmm.
they are thankful with me for giving them like job or work to get done, and I'm thankful because they are helping me
Yes.
build what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I think that's so beautiful. And when you think about what female energy embodies, right, the being energy, how has how have you been able to bring that to your own design, right? And I'm going to tell you a funny story on this. So I'm redoing my place in South Beach, right? And I have a very well-known architect do it, and he did it because he's like, I just want to work with you. And it came to, and obviously he knew me from the financial world, and I'm very, financial world, it's hard, it's this, it's that, and it was interesting because when we were doing the colors, my last relationship ended, and it was good. It was time to move forward. It was no longer serving me,
Okay.
and if it wasn't serving me, I could not be serving him. So I noticed that I give up a lot of my female energy in color selection, even,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
To appease him. So then the minute this ended, I switched everything. I went and I got the white rug and the white couch, and then this one shows up, but that's another story. And then the bedroom came to a change, and so he helped me with the colors. And I said to him, I said, I want to feel female in the bedroom. You
Okay.
know, I want it to be this beautiful female empowering energy. And he literally stopped and he goes, in all my years of doing architecture and interior design, he's like, nobody has ever explained to me as a female color. And I just started laughing. So I explained to him exactly about the being, the feeling, And so I ask you, how you being in this male world, how has your femininity, your spirituality, your connection to self, how has that redefined the way you do work, the way you do your work, and the way you connect with your clients?
I think it comes back to this idea of the way of I live. Like my inner world comes with my outer world. I'm specifically, I just started this week an apartment for a man friend. So he's a guy. Well, and it comes to when you design a place for a man or for a woman, it's really easy to like the difference of which palette of colors they choose and everything. But at the end, how I connect with them is trying to explain like, okay, you like this, but I'm the expert. Let me trust me. Let me do this. This is my like experience talking about, but it's like finding this balance. At the end, always a client for me, you need to give like the reason because I'm designing something. I'm designing spaces for them. Either it's their office, their home, their living room. So I try to, I always try to level with them in their energy, match their energy, and try to explain the why of why are we proposing these spaces. And at the end, they always agree with us what we design, but it's like finding the balance between what they want and my experience, and that's where they we lead to this design. No.
I'm going to tell you what it is. You ask you give the reason behind it. And I think that's a female energy. The like, tell me how it feels, or what is it that you're trying to feel, or this is why you want to do this, right? And I think that it's actually what defines you different. Because I have worked with both, with both energies, and I see the difference. It's very doing, 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 and the other one is like the being side, especially a home. A home is about how you feel,
Yes,
how the
exactly.
place makes you feel, right? Coming in.
Yes.
So I love that. You have redefined for your family more than anything the traditional woman's role,
Yes.
right? And that you can have both, right? You can have your career and be in a doing energy, male energy career, and yet you can still have your softness at home, right?
Yes.
How would you say you have redefined your field, or do you feel that you've redefined your field as well?
As I told you, at the end, I think it's all about balance, right? I can have this doing energy. As you said, I find it funny because I relate like now that I have my single apartment that I live by myself. It's like I bought this form of mouth kiss red and I have it there in my living room because it's like I do want to share my life with someone, but I don't have the urgency to do it. Or it's not because it was the next step to do or because
Right.
I need to get married. So it's redefining myself as I want to live as this independent woman and finding the balance of the energy of what I do because I'm passionate about being an architect and what I am outside of being an architect, right? And at the end, like I love and I also have my podcast in which I talk about spirituality and all my journey because I want to share to people how I have been experienced all these life experiences and to grow as I like I'm growing up as a person and just like I think it's finding the balance and I think it all comes to as within it's without. It's a reflection of who we are. And when you really are aligned with what's in within, everything aligns in without. And also in there it comes like the relationship with money. It's not like the money making. I see it more like I'm an abundant person. So you change the energy of how it comes and then it all like the project sum, the trips, everything.
Yes, your connection into
Uh-huh,
it.
uh-huh.
It's interesting because Amida, the tagline is transform your vision of wealth. This podcast is about health, health in wealth. And that's exactly what you're explaining is that as you create health in wealth, your definition of what wealth is transforms. And that's exactly what you're talking about, right? The transformation. What would you say your biggest lesson, Greta, has been in this journey of yours?
I think it's changing the way I perceive wealth. Like at the end, I think making money it's about energy. Money it's energy. I used to have this bad relationship with money because of how I grew up. Like I just
Story.
uh-huh.
Your money story.
Like I just the goal was to be a housewife. So I changed it by understanding that money is energy, wealth is energy, and that it comes as you are, but changing like I'm an abundant person. I deserve this prosperity. And instead of seeing like I need money, it's like I don't need money. I have money and it comes back to me. For example, if I wanted to go to a concert. Last week I wanted to go to a concert, but I just bought a few tickets. I'm going to Japan. Like it's January, I have expenses. And I was like, my friend told me like, did you already buy the ticket? And I was like, no, I haven't buy it. And she told me like, why didn't you buy it? I have a lot of expenses. Like I don't know. I have priorities. And she told me, I think this friend has another ticket. And then he asked this friend like, do you have the other ticket? And he was like, yes, for who it is? And no, it's for Greta. If it's for you, you got it.
Aww.
That's abundance.
Yes.
Like, o sea, I don't need it literally the money. But at the end, I wanted to go. And because I'm aligned, I'm receiving it. That's wealth. You
Yes.
don't need
Yes.
like literally money. And that example has happened to me a lot of times in my life. Trips, invitations, and it's just because I'm matching up my energy. I'm being nice to the persons I meet and relate, and that's why they at the end they end giving because I also give to them my energy, the way I experience life. I like sharing. Sharing is caring, and it comes all back to you.
Absolutely, Greta. And you know what? You know what's the most interesting part is that, and this is the lesson I had to learn because I grew up in a family. There was more about give, give, give to others. You just give, right? But I think that there's such a beautiful art to being able to receive as well. And I think that ability to receive actually almost to some degree creates additional self-worth for us because it's like I can give as much as I can receive.
It's balance. As you give, you need to learn to receive. I have a lot of friends who have a lot of trouble receiving, and I always tell them like it's divine energy. Like take it. Why would you say no? But I think most of people grew up like no, don't accept. You don't deserve it.
Wow. Wow.
But I did deserve that ticket. If not, they wouldn't give it to me. And I had an amazing time in the concert.
I love that. I love that. Has the relationship with your mom changed from the point where you decided to step out of the norm, right? And into who you are today? Has the relationship with your mom changed? And if so, how?
Yes, it changed a lot because at first I think I'm the biggest mirror in my mom's life of everything she didn't do and wanted to do.
Oh, wow.
Like she wanted to be an architect, and she's always telling me that. So it's been tough. And the one who supported me in that way at the end was my dad.
Oh, your dad.
Yes, I think it's controversial how I grew up, but he was the one who told me, I'm proud of what you're doing, business talking and everything. So when my dad passed away, of course, I was scared, like, who is giving me that support? And now that my mom is giving it to me, it's like it has been changing. But it's hard for her to accept it. But this week she told me, like, I'm really proud of everything you're doing. And it felt like, yes, but it changed because it was hard for her. Imagine having a daughter that is like
the mirror image of what she wanted to be.
And she always tells me like if I was your age and I would be doing everything you're doing, but I think it's really hard for her to accept it, but now she's accepted it. And maybe my dad needed to pass away for her to realize these things. That's how I choose to see things. Of course, I miss my dad. He was my favorite person, but at the end, it was his time. The only thing we have secure in this life is death.
Yes.
He was the perfect dad for me. I'm thankful for that, but everything at the end, it always comes aligned to me.
Well, maybe, Greta, you can tell your mom you were the perfect architect of your daughter. And maybe that makes her feel better, help her expand what was it that she loved about architecture and how she created this beautiful family and this beautiful support system. And, architecture is all about creating a solid base, a solid foundation. And she did that. So she used her passion in a different way.
Definitely. And one thing my mom is perfect at, it's being a mom. She's like the best mom.
So tell her that. It's like, Mom, you're the best on the architecture side. You're the best at being a mom. So that's beautiful, Greta.
Yes.
So let's, as we wrap things up a little bit, for those of us for those who are listening or viewing this and they feel that division because, I think that we grew up in this world that says, here's your family, and here's your career, and we separate everything, but we forget that everything flows in life, right? Everything is fluid. So perhaps for somebody who feels a little bit separated, right, or they feel that they have to separate things, what advice can you give them? Like how do they come back to center other than taking a shower and realizing it? What can you tell them so that they can realize that it's okay the way you feel? Like you got to go back, and think about why you feel that way, what your value system is. But what advice can you give them?
I think it comes back to as within as without. Like if you are aligned with what you feel, it doesn't have to be two separate worlds. Like at the end, as I told you, my projects started as I became an spiritual person, like recognizing that I am divine and this is all energy and we have all this. Like all this week, I've been telling to my friends, I'm God's favorite. But you are also God's favorite. We are all God's favorite. You just need to believe that you are, so that things manifest in your life. I would say just be congruent of who you are and what you do. And when you feel aligned, everything comes back. So you don't have to separate like I don't need to separate my spirituality with being an architect. When I found a balance in these two, all the things started manifesting.
I think that's beautiful advice, Greta, because I think that sometimes we tend to delineate things, and it's really, we delineate them because they're not aligned with us. But when we put in our whole bucket everything that our life is made out of, right? And everybody's different. You're different. I'm different. Everybody is different. But when we begin to say, okay, what is it about me? What is it that makes me feel good? What is aligned with my soul and with my being? And then how do I make my world fit into that? How do we let it fall in line with that? I think that's a beautiful way, a true north. I recently found out about, what's your true north, and so your true north is about alignment. Does this make my spirit, and maybe I'm speaking for you, but to me it sounds like, does this make my spirit at ease, right?
Yes.
Does it make me at peace? Am I okay with this? And for me, is my true north is, does this make my soul smile?
Okay, I love it.
So if something or someone or whatever it is, that's not a piece of clothes, does not make my soul smile, it's time to let it go.
I love it. And I want to add being passionate. Like being passionate about anything you do, it's what makes like you are on your north or the right way. Like I'm super passionate about being an architect. I'm passionate about talking about my spirituality and sharing it, and that's how like everything flows with me.
And there's one thing I love about this world and the newer generation, which you're part of it. And, it's the fact that, we talk about authenticity and we talk about being authentic. I think that something the younger generation has managed the best is at being okay with being authentic. You know what I mean? It's
Yes,
like, it's okay.
definitely.
It's okay with being authentic. And I love that. I love about that. I love
Yes, like
everything about that.
I don't want to be anyone else. I want to
Yes.
be myself. I love being myself, and I'm something I have clear is I've been super authentic since I was a child. Of course, growing up in a world where you need to be someone else
Yes.
was a thing. But yes, being authentic, like we only have ourselves, so why would I want to be anyone else? But it's hard to like really believing that.
I love that. Well, Greta, I'm forever grateful that we met. If I ever decide to build a home here in Mexico City, because the city has made me fall in love with it, I always said nothing will take me away from Miami. That's like my soul is there until life forced me to be here much longer. Because as I waited for my home to be ready, even though it's quite late, it's not late in my path.
No, of course
Like
not.
I was meant to live this time here. And I fell in love so much with Mexico City.
Me
so,
too. That's why I'm here. I fell
So
in
girl,
love with Mexico City.
I got you. The day of tomorrow, you're it. You're the one who's doing it for me.
Of course,
so I
of
so
course.
appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming, Greta, and
Thank
for
you,
sharing
Ana. You're a beautiful
about you.
soul.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you. There is power in integration. When your career is not a mask, when your spirituality is not hidden, when your economic life reflects your internal authority. Greta's journey reminds us that we don't have to choose between structure and soul. We can design both. And perhaps that is the real architecture of well-being. Not just what we build externally, but what we stand on internally. Inner authority, spiritual clarity, economic self-trust. When those foundations are aligned, your life becomes coherent, and coherence is powerful. Until next time, this is Health and Wealth.